The top 10 horror films of all time. Horror movies have been a cinema staple since the medium's dawn. From the earliest silent films to the most recent blockbusters, horror has captivated audiences with its ability to scare and thrill. In this video, we will bring you the top 10 horror movies of all time. And whether you're a seasoned horror fan or just looking for a good scare, these movies will surely send chills down your spine. Let's get started. Number 10, Jaws, 1975. Jaws is a 1975 classical horror film directed by Steven Spielberg and based on the novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. The story is set in the fictional New England beach town of Amity Island, where a giant, man-eating great white shark terrorizes the local community. The film follows Police Chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, who teams up with marine biologist Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and shark hunter Quint, played by Robert Shaw, to hunt down the shark and protect the town. As the summer season approaches, the shark attacks become more frequent and gruesome, causing panic among the locals and leading to a climactic showdown between the three men and the shark. The film is famous for its suspenseful soundtrack composed by John Williams and iconic scenes, such as the opening attack on the young woman swimming in the ocean and the final confrontation between Quint and the shark. Jaws is considered a horror genre classic and a masterful example of how suspense and terror can be built through effective storytelling and cinematography. Number 9, The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter directed the classic horror film based on the novella Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr. The story follows a team of scientists in Antarctica who are infiltrated by a shape-shifting alien organism that assimilates and imitates its hosts. As the team becomes increasingly isolated, they must figure out who among them has been taken over by the creature before it can escape to the mainland and potentially destroy all of humanity. The film is known for its gruesome and innovative practical effects, which brings to life the horrifying transformations and mutations of the alien organism. The tension is heightened by the suspicion and paranoia that grips the team as they try to figure out who can be trusted and who has been compromised by the creature. The atmosphere of isolation and claustrophobia is expertly crafted, as the characters are trapped in the harsh Antarctic environment with a monster that could be anyone. The film's themes of identity, trust, and the fear of the unknown have cemented it as a horror genre classic, and its influence can be seen in many subsequent sci-fi and horror films. The performance of the ensemble cast, including Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Wilford Brimley, are also praised for adding depth and humanity to the characters caught in this nightmare scenario. Number 8, Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Rosemary's Baby was directed by Roman Polanski, based on the novel of the same name by Ira Levin. The story follows a young couple, Rosemary, and a guy who move into a new apartment building in New York City. After becoming pregnant, Rosemary begins to suspect that her neighbors, a group of eccentric and secretive older adults, are part of a satanic cult with sinister plans for her unborn child. As Rosemary's pregnancy progresses, she becomes increasingly isolated and paranoid, convinced that everyone around her is conspiring against her. She experiences vivid and terrifying nightmares, and strange occurrences in her apartment only fuel her growing dread. As the due date for her baby approaches, Rosemary's fears reach a fever pitch, and the true nature of her neighbor's plans for her child is revealed in a shocking climax. The film is known for its eerie atmosphere, suspenseful pacing, and outstanding performances by its cast, particularly Mia Farrow in the lead role. It has been widely regarded as a classic of the horror genre and a masterpiece of psychological terror. Number 7, The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. The Silence of the Lambs is a psychological horror film directed by Jonathan Demme and released in 1991. The movie is based on the novel of the same name by Thomas Harris. It follows FBI trainee Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, as she seeks the help of a notorious psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial killer, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, to catch another serial killer known as Buffalo Bill, played by Ted Levine. Throughout the movie, the audience is exposed to graphic and disturbing scenes involving the murders committed by Buffalo Bill, who targets young women and skins them to create a woman suit for himself. Meanwhile, Clarice and Hannibal engage in a twisted psychological game as she tries to extract information from him while he manipulates her for amusement. As Clarice gets closer to finding Buffalo Bill, the tension and suspense build towards a thrilling finale in which she confronts the killer and saves his latest victim. The Silence of the Lambs is a deeply unsettling and masterfully crafted horror movie that explores the darkest depths of the human psyche. At number 6, we have Alien, a 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott. The story follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo, who encounters a mysterious alien life form while returning to Earth. The creature attacks and kills several crew members, leading to a desperate struggle for survival. The horror of Alien comes from the terror of the alien itself and the isolation and claustrophobia of being trapped in space with no escape. The tension builds throughout the film as the crew members are picked off individually, and the audience is left wondering who will be next. The film received critical acclaim for its direction, cinematography, and special effects, and has become a classic of the science fiction and horror genres. Its success spawned several sequels and spin-offs, including Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien vs. Predator. Number 5, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. This classic horror movie was released in 1974 and directed by Tobe Hooper. The movie tells the story of 5 young adults who encountered a family of cannibalistic and psychopathic murderers while on a road trip through rural Texas. The friends stop at a gas station to refuel, but the owner warns them to avoid the area due to recent grave robbing incidents. The friends ignore the warning and continue on their journey. Along the way, they pick up a hitchhiker who turns out to be mentally unstable and slashes one of them with a razor blade before being kicked out of the van. They eventually arrive at the home of the murderous family and are hunted down one by one. Leatherface, a mentally challenged man wearing a mask made of human skin and wielding a chainsaw, is the main killer in the movie. He brutally murders several of his friends. Sally, the last surviving member of the group, is chased by Leatherface through the woods before being captured and brought back to the family's home. There, she is subjected to a horrifying dinner scene before escaping and flagging down a passing truck for help. The movie is known for its gritty, realistic violence and disturbing portrayal of a family of killers. It has been praised and criticized for its graphic content, but remains a cult classic in the horror genre. At number 4, we have Halloween, a 1978 horror film directed by John Carpenter. The story takes place on Halloween night in the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, where a young Michael Myers murders his sister. 15 years later, Myers escapes from a mental institution and returns to his hometown to continue his killing spree. The movie builds tension through atmospheric cinematography, a haunting musical score, and the psychological terror of not knowing when or where Myers will strike next. The film's ending leaves the audience on the edge of their seats, wondering whether or not Myers has finally been defeated. Halloween is widely regarded as one of the most influential horror films ever, and has inspired countless imitations and homages in the decades since its release. It spawned numerous sequels, spin-offs, and reboots, cementing Michael Myers as one of cinematic history's most iconic horror villains. Next on the list is Psycho, 1960. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho is a horror classic that still manages to shock audiences with its suspenseful plot twists and psychological horror elements. Anthony Perkins delivers a haunting performance as the disturbed motel owner, Norman Bates, and the movie's iconic shower scene is one of the most famous moments in horror movie history. The film explores themes of madness, isolation, and the blurred lines between reality and fantasy. It is considered a masterpiece of horror cinema and one of the most influential and beloved horror films ever. Number 2, The Shining, 1980. Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Stephen King's novel is a horror masterpiece. The movie explores the descent of a man into madness and the terrifying events that unfold as a result. The film uses various techniques to create an atmosphere of horror and suspense, including eerie music, unsettling camera angles, and disturbing imagery. As the film progresses, the horror intensifies, with Jack becoming increasingly violent and unpredictable. The tension climaxes as Jack chases his wife Wendy and son Danny through the hotel with an axe. The film's final scenes are bloody and brutal, culminating in a showdown between Jack and Wendy that leaves Jack dead and Wendy and Danny traumatized. The Shining is a masterful exploration of horror, using various techniques and elements to create a gripping and terrifying experience for the audience. And finally, number 1 is The Exorcist. This movie, released in 1973, tells the story of a young girl named Reagan, who becomes possessed by a demonic entity. The movie follows the efforts of a priest named Father Karras to exorcise the demon from her body. The movie is known for its intense and disturbing scenes, such as the infamous head spinning and projectile vomiting. However, it is also a masterful exploration of faith, doubt, and the struggle between good and evil. The Exorcist has been widely regarded as a horror classic that has stood the test of time, and its impact on the horror genre cannot be overstated. So guys, what's your take on these classic horror movies? And which one of them do you think is the most horrifying? Let us know in the comments section.